now.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give you all just a minute to get logged in. And I just want to remind you all that you can use that chat feature on the side to send us questions, and we will get to them at the end. And you can also just let us know where you're watching from today. So again, welcome and good morning. My name is Jade, and I am an educator for the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife here in Maine. And today we're at the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray. And here at the park, we have over 30 different species of native Maine wildlife, and they're all here for a number of different reasons. Most of them are either orphaned, injured, and in some cases, they were even illegal pets that were confiscated. But none of them can live in the wild anymore, so they live here at the park. So you can learn more about the park by visiting mainewildlifepark.com, and you can learn more about inland fisheries and wildlife at mefishwildlife.com. But we are here today to talk about wildlife senses. And to start, I just want to talk about some of our human senses. So humans have 5 different senses. Can you name all 5 of the human senses? I'll give you some hints. I'll point to where some of my senses are working right now. So I have my eyes, and that gives us a sense of sight. We also have our ears, and those help us with hearing. Our mouth is for taste and also for sound, for communicating and making sound. And we also have our hands for touching and our skin for feeling. So that sense of feeling, that sense of touch. And animals have the same senses that we do. Some of those animal senses are way better than our human senses, and they use them in different ways. Ultimately, it is all about survival. They need their senses just like we do to avoid danger, to hunt and find their food, and to find mates and safe places to live. So it's all about surviving. Humans, for example, rely very heavily on our sense of sight. We need to see what we're doing as we're living our lives, as we're driving, as we're playing or going to work. Some of us also do hunting and fishing, and we need our sense of sight to do all of those things. It's also important for us to avoid danger. We need to be able to see a fire or see lightning. We need to be able to hear. We need to hear alarms and sirens. So we use our senses similar to animals do, but our lives are a lot different and we survive differently. Let's start by looking at sense of sight. Oh, sorry. There we go. We'll start by looking at some examples of sight in animals. So the first one I want to look at, get our big eagle mount over here. So you can see this eagle's head and eyes. And eagles have binocular vision. They are predators. So they use their eyesight to hunt. They have very, very good eyesight. They can be up in the sky, soaring above, or up in the tallest tree, and they can see their prey down on the ground or swimming in the water. So they use their eyesight to help them hunt. So they also have, their eyes are made for seeing things that are very far away. We as humans are good at seeing things that are a medium distance or that are close to us. But eagles, their eyes are specially made for seeing things that are very far away. So good for eagle sight there. The next animal we're going to look at is a furry friend. This is a bobcat. So cats live differently than eagles do. They can't fly. They're living down on the ground and hunting down on the ground. But they are also predators. So just like us humans, they have their eyes facing forward on the front of their faces. And a lot of predators, a lot of animals that hunt, have their eyes facing forward like that. It's a good sign that they're a predator. And again, they have very good vision, but theirs is especially good for both daytime and also nighttime. So they do a lot of their hunting at night. So they are better at seeing in the dark than we are. So they can see during the nighttime just as well as they can see during the day. So they can find all those little small mammals and birds and all the little critters that are out in the night. We'll take another look back at our cat in just a minute. But first, I want to look at another bird of prey. So this here is an owl. And you can see this owl has very large eyes. So again, this is just a mount. It's not a live owl. So the eyes are not real. But this is the correct size and shape that an owl's eye is. And just like I said about the cat, they do a lot of their hunting at night. So they also have very, very good night vision. And they have these very large forward-facing eyes. So we know that they're a predator. And owls, they actually cannot move their eyeballs in their eye as well as we can. So without moving my head, I can look off to the side and see things on the side. I can look up and down by moving my eyeball. But they are not very good at doing that. So instead, they move their whole head. So we know that owls can rotate their heads really far. They can look all the way over past their shoulder. So they've adapted in that way so they don't have to worry about moving their eyes. They move their whole head to find their prey. So some people believe that bats can't see. They think that bats are blind, but that is not true. Bats actually have very good eyesight, and they also have a very good sense of smell and ability to hear. But they, again, are one of those animals that hunts at night. They work the night shift, so they have very good eyesight actually, and can see very well, especially in low light or no light. So good night vision on them too. So hearing is just one way of seeing around in the dark. Bats also have a very cool adaptation called echolocation. So they have the ability not only to see and hear their prey, but say this bat is flying through the air and they see a bug, an insect that's flying through the air that they want to eat. They're going to send out a sound, a very high-pitched sound. And when it hits that bug in the air, it sends the sound back to the bat. So they're actually using sound to see their environment. And that's called echolocation. So they send out a high-pitched sound and it bounces back to them. And it means they can see trees, they can see insects, and it helps them when they're flying at night. So they don't have to just rely on their sense of being able to hear. Again, that's going to help them hunt. It's going to help them avoid collisions. So I said it can help them echolocate the trees. So bats can fly really, really fast, and they're very agile when they fly. And that's because they're using their echolocation to miss the trees, miss a light post. So they don't hit into anything also. They can also use it to avoid being eaten. There are some animals like owls that might actually try and grab a bat, or different like a snake or other animals might try and eat a bat. So they're going to use their echolocation to locate predators also. While we're talking about hearing, I'm going to get our cat back out and look at these big ears. So a lot of animals also rely on their ability to hear. So this is especially important in our prey instead of predators. So some of our predators have very good abilities to hear and to see, but their prey is trying to hear the predator before they get eaten. So prey have especially good abilities to hear. When we look at animals like rabbits, deer, moose, They tend to be herbivores. They don't eat other animals. They don't eat meat. They're looking for plants. But they often have these very large ears up on top of their heads. And that is so they can hear a predator creeping or stalking through the woods or through the leaves to come get them. And they often live in groups. So a herd of deer is going to all live together and they're going to be listening together. So when they hear something like a lynx creeping up on them, they are going to hear that lynx coming. And when they move, the whole herd is going to move. So very good sense of hearing. So they know to rush away and find safety. Other animals use their hearing actually to attract mates. So I have a bullfrog here, and frogs have very special ears. They actually, if I get this nice and close to you, their ears are here behind their eye. It's the circle behind their eye. So you're on this side too. So this brown circle behind their eye, and this is a fake frog, but it shows really well on the side there where that ear is. And this is actually their eardrum. So in humans, our eardrum is further inside of our head, but the frogs don't have this whole protective part of their ear. Their eardrum is on the outside so they can hear sounds very, very well. And that is because they rely on their song, the frog song, to find mates. So the males have larger circles, larger eardrums than their eyes usually. And the females will have a circle that's the same size of their eye or smaller. So it's a good way to tell them apart. And this is because the boy frogs, the male frogs, do the singing in June to claim an area of the pond. And that is so that their lady frog can go and lay her eggs there. So they rely on their hearing during the mating season and have these special ears that are really their eardrums. They're right against the sides of their heads. Owls also have an amazing ability to hear. So I said they're gonna use those big eyes to see their prey, but they're also gonna use their ears. So their ears are usually covered by their feathers, but they're right here on the sides of their heads. And owls often have what we call asymmetric hearing. So instead of their ears being fairly level on the side of their head, they have one that's in a little bit different location than the other. So they don't sit right next to each other, right across from each other. And this means they can pick up sounds from different areas. So especially as they're turning their heads around and hearing, their ears can pick up different sounds in different directions. So very good ability to hear on the owls too. And they can hear so well that they could hear a pin drop, a little pin drop across the length of a football field. So if this owl was on one goalpost and someone dropped a pin all the way on the other side of the football field, they would be able to hear that pin hit the ground. Very, very good ability to hear on owls. All right. So we've talked about sight and we've talked about hearing, but there's also some animals that rely on all their senses or multiple different senses to live. So most of us don't just use our sight or just use our hearing or just use our sense of being able to feel, but we use lots of senses at the same time. So when we look back at bats, I talked about how they use their special echolocation to navigate through their habitat, but they also rely on their smell. So bats have a very good sense of smell, and this comes in handy when they have their babies. So baby bats and mom bats know the smell of each other. So if their baby gets separated from them, they can actually use their sense of smell to find their babies. So they have a very good sense of smell on top of having that really cool echolocation. So she'll go and she'll smell her baby to find it again. Fox and coyotes rely on their sense of smell as well. They have very good abilities to hear. They're also predators, so they have those forward-facing eyes for seeing. But they use their sense of smell quite a lot too. So this is a coyote skull. you can see how long this snout is. And their nose, this canal here, that would be filled with all their sensory organs in here for being able to smell. So they're going to smell all the way up their long nose. So you know when you see an animal with a nose that long, that they probably have a really good sense of smell. And they use this sense of smell for a lot of different reasons. One is going to be for finding prey, for finding their food, but they also use it to mark their territory and to communicate with each other. So most canines and cats too, they use a scent to mark their territory, and then they can come through and smell the scent from other coyotes, and it's just like their way of talking to each other. So they're going to mark their scent, and that tells another coyote that this is my territory. It might tell another coyote that I'm looking for a girl or I'm looking for a boy if it's mating season. So they use their sense of smell a lot too. Some animals use smell in a different way. When we see this fur, this is from a skunk, of course, a striped skunk. And we know that skunks have a stinky smell. This fur even has the smell of a skunk, and the skunk is no longer attached to this fur. It will probably smell like a skunk forever. But they use their smell as a defense. So instead of their smell saying, oh, this is my territory, or I'm looking for a partner, that sense of smell is saying, stay away from me. I will spray you. And that sense of smell, that spray that they have, also hurts. It's going to burn and sting. So that helps them in a lot of different ways. But also the colors on their fur are also seen by predators, and it marks them as a skunk. So hopefully before a predator even has to get close enough to get sprayed, they see this bright white stripe. So skunks are fairly nocturnal. They're active at night. So they have the black fur that blends in with the darkness, and then the white stripes are going to be like a big signal that says, I'm a skunk. If you get any closer, you're going to end up being very stinky. A sense we haven't really talked about much yet is touch. And touch is one that we don't always think about in nature, but there are actually many animals that use touch. Humans use touch a lot. We rely a lot on feeling and touch when we feel something is hot or cold. But animals and things out in nature use touch a lot too. Raccoons and otters and muskrats use their touch. They have very, very good toes and fingers. And they use those to find their food. So they dig under logs, and they dig in mud and like mucky salt water in lakes and ponds to find their food. And they need to use their touch to find those. So they'll dig in the mud, and they'll feel when they have a mussel or they have a little worm or something that they can eat. Beavers use their sense of touch to help them build as well. So they'll find rocks and they'll find sticks. And those rocks and sticks are what make up their lodges and their dams. So they use their really good hands and their sense of touch to be able to build their homes and build their dams. Turtles are another animal that have a very important sense of touch. And I have a turtle friend here. So this is a box turtle. And this is one of Maine's endangered species. The box turtles are an endangered species here in Maine. And turtles go into their shells for protection. So this turtle, we're almost certain, was someone's pet. A turtle should never stick their head and arms out like this when you're holding them. So if you ever found a wild turtle and you touched it, it should put its head and its arms and legs into its shell for protection, especially a box turtle, because they can actually close up the bottom of their shell. They have a little hinge under there, so they can close up like a box. But something that a lot of people often don't think about is how turtles can actually feel on their shells. This shell is not just detached from their body. They actually have nerves, and they are attached to their shell. So that's how they know to stay out of trouble. So if they were trying to crawl under a log and this log hit the front of their shell right here, he knows I'm not going to fit in this space. And they can feel that. And he just now felt when I moved my hand here versus when I moved my hand back here. So as I got closer to his head, where he feels less safe, he put his head inside. Like I said, this turtle was probably someone's pet, and that was illegal because they are a protected species because they're endangered. So this turtle is not like a wild turtle. A wild turtle would never hang out with us like this and show off his head like this. All right. The last sense we haven't talked about yet is taste. So taste is very important to humans again. We love eating tasty foods. We can taste salty, sweet, tangy, bitter, savory. We have all kinds of different tastes and different foods that we like. But that's not as important for animals. Animals often use their other senses to decide if they're going to eat something. But there are some animals that are very unique and they have a sense of taste. And these animals are in the insect world. So butterflies use their sense of taste. They drink nectar from flowers, and they also drink dirt and like the mud from water for their minerals. So mud has minerals in it, and they want some of those. Butterflies will even go and visit carrion, which are dead animals, and they actually taste with their feet. So a butterfly will land on a flower, land on an animal, land in the mud, and they don't taste through their mouth like we do. They have a sense of taste through their feet. So when they land on something, they know, oh, do I want to eat this or do I want to eat this? Do I need this? So it's very different from us, but a very cool ability to taste, and that comes from butterflies. And many insects don't only taste flowers with their feet, but they also look different to them. So we see a range of colors. Humans can see a lot of colors. Some of our predators, like cats and dogs, the canines, they don't see quite as many colors as we do, and we're still learning about that. We do know that a lot of cats can see the color red and some other colors that help them when they're hunting. But color isn't as important to some animals. So for insects, especially the ones that are eating nectar in different parts of flower and looking for pollen, color is very important to them. So they see colors in a fluorescent way. They see colors that are very, very bright. So they can find the good nectar. They know where to help pollinate. It's almost like the landing lights at an airport for them. So those colors that we see on a flower that are pretty or that are bright are even brighter to them. And it's like landing an airplane at the airport. They see those bright fluorescent colors and lights, and they know that's the flower that I want to go land on. So we've talked about all the senses now. We've talked about our own senses and also how animals use their special senses. I would love to answer any questions that might have come in about wildlife senses.
Hey Jade, we do have a couple of questions that have come in. The first question is, what other animals use echolocation? So you mentioned bats. What are some of the other ones that use that sense?
Yeah, so for bats, it helps them in the night. But there's also animals, especially ones that live in the ocean, that use echolocation. So it helps them when they're swimming through the water. Animals like dolphins and whales will also use sound waves to navigate their habitat. So especially when they're swimming through a lot of open ocean and they're looking for other animals for food, or they're looking for another animal for a mate, they need to use that echolocation to see what's happening around them. Just like the bat, they're going to be looking for food, they're going to be on the lookout for predators, and they're looking for a mate.
Jade, I will just mention too, you did get a shout out. Someone said that you are a great presenter, and we all agree here at MDIFW.
Thank you so much.
So another question is, how many senses do humans and animals have in common?
So animals and humans, it depends, of course, on the animal and the human, but we share a lot of the same senses. I would definitely say that the sight, hearing, and also sense of smell is very important in the animal world, especially to a lot of the animals that first come to mind, like the mammals and the birds and the animals that we really like to go see when we're out in nature. But our senses are very different from some of the animals that we don't always think about, like our reptiles and our insects. Those animals use senses a lot differently than we do because they survive differently than we do. They live down on the ground or they're very, very small. So they live in their habitat a lot differently than some of the other animals do. So we share those five senses with a lot of animals, but for most of them, theirs are even better than ours, or theirs have adapted for their special habitat to be especially unique, like using echolocation or seeing fluorescent colors.
So another question somebody asked was, it was really more of a comment, but I thought that all skunks have stripes. Now, it's not really about animal senses, but is that true that some skunks have stripes and some don't?
So here in North America, we have, especially in the Northeast, we just have the striped skunk, but there are other species of skunks. So the skunks that we have are actually called striped skunks. That's their actual species name. But there's some other species that are in the same family that have a little bit different markings. And most of them are still the black and white or the really, really dark brown and white. But there's a few different skunk species out there that have a little bit different markings and aren't quite as boldly striped like the striped skunk. Some of them have spots. Some of them have spots mixed with stripes. So a couple different types of skunks out there. But you'll only see the striped skunks here in Maine.
Which animal in Maine has the best eyesight?
So I don't know for certain, but my best guess is going to be our birds of prey. Animals like the peregrine falcon and our owls have amazing eyesight. They can soar so high up in the air. They're flying very, very fast. So we have peregrine falcons here in the state that come and go during different breeding seasons and nesting seasons. And a lot of our birds of prey have some of the best eyesight, and also those owls, they have some of the best abilities to hear. So I'm not certain, I would have to look to see for sure, but my most educated guess would be the peregrine falcon.
And what senses do snakes have?
So snakes and reptiles do use their senses a little bit differently than we do. Their taste, their sense of taste is a lot different, and they also see and feel their environment a little bit differently than we do. They have some sensory organs on the sides of their mouths that help them feel where they're going down on the ground and help them see their environment in a different way because they slither and move down on the ground and are looking for things like rodents, little birds, other snakes or lizards that might be down there that they want to eat. So they have some different senses than the other animals do. They also are cold-blooded, so they're seeking heat and cold differently than we do. Our bodies help us control how hot or cold we are. But for cold-blooded animals like turtles and snakes, they are looking for those warm places. So they have different senses that help them find somewhere hot or somewhere cold to help regulate the insides of their bodies.
And someone in the chat just said, so sorry for the loss of Annie. We did unfortunately lose our moose Annie. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the senses that moose use?
Yeah, so moose are in a special category because they don't have that many wild predators. They are so large that they don't have a lot of other animals that are going to use all the energy to take down an animal as big as a moose. So they aren't using their senses quite as much to avoid predators. However, they do have those really big ears. They do have a really good sense of being able to hear. So probably their biggest predator would be humans. So we hunt moose. They also are often involved in vehicle collisions. So they are going to be listening for anything crunching through the woods if they do need to avoid something like a hunter or a very ambitious animal that wants to try and take down a big moose. But they also have those big, long snouts. So they're going to use their sense of smell. They have the really big nose and big nostrils. So they can smell for different plants. They like certain trees more than other trees. They like to eat plants in the water. So they're going to use their sense of smell for that. They also can use, they can move their skin. So some animals, especially the ones that live out in the wild where insects are trying to bite them a lot, they can actually move their skin. So like if we look at this fox, if a fly landed on him, and you've probably seen your dog or even your pet cat do this, they can kind of vibrate their skin and try and shake that bug off. And that's something that we can't do.
Great, thank you, Jay. Well, that's all the questions that I have, and it's at 11 a.m. now, so I think probably good to wrap up this great presentation on animal senses.
Perfect, thank you. I do just want to mention one fun activity that you can do at home before we wrap up. So I just have an old empty tissue box here, and this is a fun way to test your sense of touch. So there's no tissues in here, and what you do is you and a friend, or you and your parents, or an adult at home, or you can do this with a teacher in a classroom, will hide different objects in the box without you seeing, and then you feel inside without looking and see if you can tell what's inside. So inside here, it's something thin and long. It kind of feels like a worm. Let's see what's in here. Oh, it's a little snake. So you can do this with all kinds of different objects. And again, you don't want to cheat. Don't look with your eyes. Just use your hands. Just use your touch and see if you can figure out what's inside your tissue box. You can use really any container that you just can't see through. But that's a good way to test your senses at home. And we have lots of other activities and all of our program recordings available online. You can go right to our YouTube and find past recordings and future upcoming recordings. You can also go to mefishwildlife.com/field trips to see what's coming up. And you can go to mainewildlifepark.com to learn more about the wildlife park. And I hope that you'll be able to visit us this summer, this fall, and check out some of what is already all around us in Maine up close and learn more about Maine wildlife. So thank you so much for watching today, and I hope to see you next time.